Hello one and all, and welcome to episode 2 of the Contest Realm podcast. Thanks for all your feedback on the first episode. It's been 2 weeks since we did the last one. And where you can now find the podcast, obviously a lot of you have asked whether or not we're going to be on iTunes. We will be at a later date, but as of now we'll be on YouTube, SoundCloud and Spotify. And all those links will be available on social medias, and as well my glamorous host will be posting them out as well, probably with Frontline MCOC. He probably will be. I know he will be. He's a pretty organised person. But obviously this is our second episode, and we are grateful for all the support and all the feedback on the first episode. And obviously our schedule is going to be a case we're going to do one a week, or hope to do one a week. But now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my glamorous co-host, who you can keep up to date with on his blog Frontline MCOC by going to the bios, as well as our guest today. His links will be in the bios and information. First of all, Dan, as always, thank you very much for being here with me.
Hey Rich, thanks for having me, and I really appreciate being called glamorous. That is quite an ego boost for me, so I appreciate that.
Well, what I'm going to be doing is trying to do more of epic introductions, because when we introduce the host, no, I'm the host and you're the host. When I introduce our guest, I'm going to be giving a big build-up. Today's episode, Dan, we're talking Abyss of Legends.
Abyss of Legends MCOC has a new Everest, and a few brave souls have stared into the abyss and have not blinked, including our guest today.
Yes, and I'm going to give him the introduction that he so solely deserves. And now, our first ever guest. I'm looking forward to this, by the way. He's dubbed the MCOC Ninja, the light-footed fancy. He's your reigning New York Comic-Con Ultimate Champion of the world! Metal Sonic Dude! How was
What's up,
that?
guys?
Hey! Are you ready to rumble, MSD?
Oh, I'm ready to win this thing and go to WrestleMania.
Let's go.
Obviously, there's a good, a lot of us here in the podcast, and obviously, I guess the fans of wrestling, and it's quite apt because this is Royal Rumble weekend.
Exactly. Very exciting.
We're hours away from it, but yeah, we're here to talk about Abyss of Legends. And as Dan said, and as we all know, this is meant to be the killer content, the content that wasn't meant to be completed in the same day, and obviously it was completely shattered. So Dan, where would you want to start your questioning? Because there's a lot to ask.
I think we should start at, let's start a little bit back when Abyss was announced, and then information started to leak out, because MSD was really one of the thought leaders in the community as far as pre-Abyss testing. So I really want to get his take on the initial announcement for Abyss, and then once we heard about sort of the requirements and the nodes, how he went about testing out different champions and selected his eventual team for a first run.
Yeah. Okay. So should we start with leaked information? How much of the leaked information was beneficial to preparation?
Okay, so when the Abyss announcement dropped, this was at the beginning of January, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had some information about things in the Abyss pre this announcement dropping. I already had some stuff that Otreeks dug up for me about like the chest rewards, and I already knew about the Abyss Collector's health pool. And so I had like a very light base of information going into the announcement. But hearing the announcement, reading it, doing my whole overview of it, looking at the rewards, and kind of skimming over some of Kabam Mike's responses to people, like how high the health pool is going to be, and then he's saying, higher than you've ever seen, and they're not even 6 million. So it was the information beforehand was definitely very useful and influenced who I tested in Labyrinth for my spreadsheet. And it also a little bit influenced who I was going to bring in for my initial team, but I had a good basis of who my 5 were. It changed a little bit last second, but I had a pretty good understanding of who I was going to bring in.
Yeah, I'm even like looking at because every time I used to check Twitter would be like, something popped up, you were testing something out within 240 hits, and it was very kind of like specific to the build up of that. What in particular with the champions that you brought in was so crucial to the preparation, or like abilities build and those kind of things?
So when the announcement dropped, again, kind of correlates back to this, there was no sign of Limber. And that was huge in Labyrinth because Limber could just kill so many champions and their potential to deal damage. So when I saw and read and, you know, through the grapevine heard that there was no Limber, I was thinking, okay, Domino has to be incorporated somehow. In some way, I have to get Domino on this team because she's going to be able to deal so much more damage because no Limber. So I knew Domino was going to have a spot on my team somehow, some way. My original idea was, oh yeah, I'll just bring the Domino Trinity. But I soon found out that the Trinity takes up 3 spots of my 5-slot team, and I can't risk only bringing 3 damage dealers instead of 4.
Yeah, so, I suppose that's where Labyrinth of Legends... Sorry, Dan, I'll let you kind of come in a second.
I think I know where you're going with this, Rich, but it seems like the Abyss construction, you can't rely on just one champion.
Yeah,
right.
And this is how
very different than most of Labyrinth.
Yeah, that's the what I was going to get to. Is like, yeah, so where Labyrinth has evolved for a lot of players, like before it used to be a case of going, oh, we'll go into Labyrinth of Legends. Oh, I'll just take and what I went in with the Blade Trinity, and then you know, some kind of padding to that. I can't remember if I used Kamala Khan or Vulture, whatever, in order to pad up stuff with Stark Spidey. But it does very much feel that this is where we are now. Is it's all about the individual champion and how it benefits. Right. Yeah, Dan, I'll throw it over to you to ask.
Let's talk about the eventual team you settled on. So that was Red Hulk and Domino, Human Torch, Symbiote Supreme, and Guillotine 2099. Can you give us a quick overview of why those 5 were selected?
So I'll give you the reason for each of the 4 because Red Hulk was a synergy champion for Domino. So right. Guillotine 2099. When, you know, we saw her at Comic-Con and we saw her damage ramp-up potential, we all thought, oh my god, this is crazy. The Abyss is coming out. She goes to 600 hits. There has to be some correlation. But no, that was a complete and utter troll. That was just a lie. So, I still, doing my testing, I still knew Guillotine was going to be a decent damage output, or deal decent damage in the Abyss, but it wasn't going to be anywhere near the damage that she could deal in Labyrinth or any endgame content where the opponent has more than 300, 400, 500,000 health. So Guillotine was supposed to be my main damage dealer, but it really turned out to be Human Torch. And I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So Guillotine for like general clearing, and yeah, she really didn't have any specific matchups where I needed her. She was just more of a general clearing champ. So, moving on to Domino, again, like I was saying with the no Limber, I knew that the heavy strat was going to be crucial for damage output for my team because of my limited variety of champions that I could bring. So, the Incinerate heavy strat, I don't think I fought any Incinerate immune champions except for Mephisto, but I didn't use Domino for Mephisto. But she did really well in the matchup that I needed her to do really well in, and I'm happy with her performance. But when I go back in Abyss, she will not be on my team. So moving on to Symbiote Supreme, the only reason I brought Symbiote Supreme was because I needed someone for Captain Marvel. That's pretty much the only reason for bringing Symbiote Supreme. But then once I saw on the path there was a Hyperion and a champion, I knew he was going to be more viable than I originally thought he would be. I thought I was just going to use him for Captain Marvel, kind of put him on the bench, but that was not the case. But I'm actually really considering, you know, once I complete my kind of Abyss criteria, replacing Dr. Doom with Symbiote Supreme, because I really thoroughly enjoyed his performance in Abyss. I thought his damage output was incredible for the matchup that I needed him to be effective in, and I am interested to see Symbiote Supreme gameplay in the Abyss in the future.
And Symbiote Supreme was the champion. From what I understand, Symbiote Supreme was the champion that was kind of tested in that role when they were creating the Abyss, because Doom wasn't a completed character yet.
Right. So, last but not least, certainly not least, is my guy Human Torch. He turned out to be probably the most effective champion on my team for Abyss. I didn't use anyone else for Nameless Collector except Human Torch. He got it down in probably, let's see, I had 3,000 units. Oh, man, probably like 35 revives. It was awfully awful, but Human Torch got it done. I did manage to solo Mephisto with Human Torch, so that was really nice. And he was really effective for fights like Cyclops. Most of the Mystic fights he just absolutely incinerated, pun intended. He was the only champion that I could use against Invisible Woman, and I had to fight her bugged, where she would just gain back percentages of health just because. And yeah, man, if I could take Human Torch to rank 6, I would. That's what I'm gonna say.
Wow. Now, with the amount of health points, I know you're talking about the Human Torch against the Collector. What were you taking down? We could say like, how many health points were you taking down at a time? Say per revive. Was it a case like? I mean, sorry. Let's talk about the best run of that. Say one revive, were you taking down 500,000 points, health points a time? What was the best?
Are we talking about the Collector or just like general?
Collector fight out of curiosity.
Okay, so the best run I had at him was 9% with Human Torch.
Wow.
In one run. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah. My mindset was, so I did my first kind of test fight. I didn't put the pre-fight on. So I just went in with Human Torch because I used him to finish off Cull because my sim died because, 10% chance to stun on basic attacks, woohoo. Yeah. And I went in and kind of just tested the waters, felt, the block damage, see what the damage output of the specials was. I let him hit me with the special 1. I dexed the special 2. And then I think I let him do a full 5 combo on my block just to see what the block pen was before he reached that phase where his attacks do more damage on the block. And after I kind of took in all that information, I full boosted, I turned on the pre-fight, and I went to town. So nice. my mindset was, okay, 1% per fight is good, but anything like 3 or 4% is nice.
Wow, that is a tough baseline when you're like, oh, if I can just get 2% of the health pool down a fight, I've done good work. Really shows you the mindset that you have to go into with that fight. That is crazy. And I remember you posted the end of the fight, and I was joking I was half joking on Twitter when you posted it, and I was like, all right, yeah, I would have died about 45 times in that 22-second clip because it's just it's like, all right, dead. Oh, he's thrown a special. Each one of those hits would have killed me. And it's like, oh, MSD's still alive. it's like you're gonna have to put up some perfect dexes of the Collector fights as a compilation once you have some time.
My first run at him, I dexed the special 2 perfectly, so I can upload that. Nice.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. I know we kind of jumped to the end with the Collector, but how long in between the Abyss opening? Did you wait until you actually went in for your attempt, and what did you learn in the interim?
So, when you say Abyss opening, like my final attempt, or do you mean
the Abyss opened on 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday?
Oh, you mean like the Abyss actually releasing?
Okay. Yeah, actually releasing. How long between release did you wait to get in there and live scouting? What did you do for that?
So. It released during a school day, which was fantastic. So
not very thoughtful of them.
No. I mean, come on, guys. Really, it's Abyss. Okay, I got a YouTube channel to maintain here. So it was 1 o'clock. So I was like, "Oye, profesora, ¿puedo ir al baño?" So I left to the bathroom, and I turned on Seed and Stream, and he was going in and looking at all the fights. I saw Thing, Darkhawk, and Iron Man Infinity War as the first 3 bosses. And I was like, wow, that's so thoughtful, guys. That's
Yeah, pick
really,
your poison. Yeah,
God,
nice easy fights to kind of get in the groove with.
nice, testing fights for Abyss. Totally just fights that you can test the damage output in, not specific fights where you need strategic plans for every single motion.
Yeah,
But,
no Red Hulk in the Abyss.
Right. Nevertheless, after I watched his stream for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I came back and I was thinking in class, like, okay, I need to figure out a way to make this team work. I need to get this team ready to go. I'll do some practice runs on Thing, and I'll just go to work. So I got home probably 4:35, and I turned on See the Stream, and I saw he was on either Joe Fixit or Iron Man Infinity War, one of those two, and he was doing really well. So that kind of inspired me to just kind of jump in. So I did some test runs with Guillotine against Thing, and my best one, I got him down to, I think, 65% in one run with Gilly.
Nice.
And that was the run I decided, okay, full boost, it's game time, boys.
Yep.
And that's when I started. So I'd say I started my run about 4 hours after it dropped.
Gotcha. And you spread this run out over several days, right?
Yeah, I finished it yesterday, so over 4 days.
Wow. So you really had to take some time, because I think there was a lot of a lot of people say, oh, it's so easy. Look at Seaton completed the easy path in 6 hours. What is this content? And did you do the same path, that yellow path on the map first?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you've gone in firsthand. How easy is the easy path?
All right, let me get this off my chest right now, because I was gonna make a video on this, but I'm gonna wait until after I'm done with our lovely interview here to make my video on it. But Abyss of Legends, if you have the 4 horsemen, which are Aegon, Doctor Doom, Nick Fury, and Human Torch, is arguably easier than 6.2 and 6.3 100% and 100% Labyrinth in initial completion of Abyss. If you don't have the right champions, don't be me, first of all, and focus on act content, 100%ing Labyrinth, getting more resources to gain those correct champions, because not to sound like a cocky or anything, but I don't think I've seen anyone else who's either completed or 100% Abyss that didn't have one or all of the horsemen in their team.
I think that's something to kind of like pull us back to where we started off questioning, where we kind of look at the team creation and the fact that it seems to be a case like no one's talking about X, Y, and Z champion. It's just a case of going, look, as you even alluded to, those 4 specific champions, if you've got them, it makes the situation a lot more easier. So preparation, do you think that you all were adequately prepared to use those specific types of champions as opposed to anything else? Or do you think that because you had them, you use them regularly, that you're like, I'm super prepared even now?
I think I was pretty prepared, even though I didn't have the 3 main champions that I really needed. I thought I was prepared with the roster I had, but there were some fights that broke me a little bit on the inside. Captain Marvel movies, probably one of them. Oh my! I don't want to talk about it, man. But I thought with the team I had, the units I had in the stash, and the revives I had, I thought I was mostly prepared.
Yeah.
And you say mostly prepared, and you're someone that spent hours on homework and theory crafting and testing.
Yes.
So your version
Homework
of
and,
mostly
literal homework.
yeah, exactly. Like your version of mostly prepared is way above the average bar. Let's be honest about that.
No, you're right. You're right.
So it's that's what I want to ask. How much of Abyss is about skill and how much of it is about having the right champions in your mind?
Ooh, I'm actually really glad you asked this question. I was hoping for a question like this.
I do what I can.
No, I appreciate it. You're doing a great job. So how much of Abyss is about skill and how much of Abyss is about champions? I love this question because there really is no right answer. Because if you have the right champions, Abyss is obviously going to require skill. You're not going to be able to go in there at you just completed 6.1, you have 2 rank 5 stars. You're not going to be able to go in there and do it if you don't have an understanding of the core game mechanics and intercepting and not hitting on the block and baiting specials without hitting them on the block and reparrying as kind of a new mechanic that's risen from the surface of the game. So I would say that there's a fine balance between just having the right champions and skill, because fights like Red Skull and Bishop, you need the right champions. But fights like what's a good example? Fights like Aegon or fights like Omega Red, you don't need the right champion, you just need to be skilled. So I'd say there's a decent balance between having the right characters and being good at the game, but obviously having both is an accolade that you should strive for. Because if you have Dr. Doom, Nick Fury, and Aegon, you don't even need Human Torch, because those 3 would just carry you. But Human Torch is nice to have. But Aegon, just Aegon alone, can do the easy path. You don't need any other champion.
That's a good point. It kind of leads me on to the question of would there be any other champions apart from the 4 that are in game that you would say we should be using these in Abyss of Legends?
Yeah, there are a few that definitely shine in certain matchups, but the problem is with these few champions, you're only going to use them for maybe 1 or 2 fights, and then they're going to sit on the bench, and that's a problem in the Abyss, because you want to maximize the use of every champion on your roster. And if you're going to have one character that's going to be ridiculous for this one fight, but for all the other fights, it's just okay, it's kind of a waste of a champion. But there are certain characters that have their specific uses but are also decent for other fights. And the one that I haven't stopped thinking about for a while is Stealth Spidey. He is probably one of the best counters for that Luke Cage fight, because you have to do him 3 times. And 5.7 million, indestructible every 30 seconds, unstoppable. It's a great time. Kabam, doing good to the community. But Stealth Spidey seems so good for that fight. You could, I'm not going to say easily get a solo, because it's going to be 1,200 hits, but you can get a solo on that fight, and Stealth Spidey can counter a lot of other fights just because of his slow mechanics. So I would say Stealth Spidey is actually a decent champion for niche matchups in Abyss.
Yeah.
So if you have a Stealth Spidey and you're going in Abyss and you need to fight that Luke Cage, if you don't have the other champion I'm going to mention, bring Stealth Spidey. But the other champion that I'm going to mention is the queen of the contest, Ghost herself.
Yeah.
Because her phase, if you counter the first hit, it counts as an intercept. So you instantly get rid of the unstoppable, unblockable. So Stealth Spidey and Ghost, although not the best options for Abyss overall, because, 4 horsemen, those 2 have their very kind of niche uses in certain matchups, specifically the Luke Cage. And I'm trying to think, there's one more matchup where I thought Stealth Spidey would be decent, but I'm blanking on it right now. But the Luke Cage is really the big baddie of paths 3, 4, and 5, I believe. Or it's either 2, 3, 4 or 3, 4, 5.
At least he's early enough in that you can realistically practice that fight.
Right.
You're not 18 fights in and then running into him. So
That would have been, yeah, that's like Red Skull, man. If you don't have the right counter for Red Skull, good day, mate, good day. Just take that one to the chin, you know?
yeah. So I wanted to ask you. We won't talk about your least favorite fight because you've already brought it up and said you didn't want to talk about it.
We can talk about it if you want.
All right. I want to get your least. Yeah, I want to get your least favorite and why, and then the fight that you thought was just a bunch of fun, and you at the end of it you're like, wow, that was like a creative fight. It made me think. It was fun to play.
I know the answers already.
All right.
All right. So we're gonna start with least favorite.
Yeah, let's do least favorite. Get that out of the way, and then we'll move on to the positive stuff.
Now, disclaimer, this fight probably wouldn't have been as bad if I didn't have a champion that was constantly gaining power until he died.
Ooh.
Because the abyssal ability for Captain Marvel was when you're above 1.5 bars of power, you degen infinitely. So, Symbiote Supreme, not good for Captain Marvel.
Oh, no.
That fight probably took as many revives, if not more, than the Collector. That fight wiped out my entire saved unit stash. I had 19 level 2 revives, 4 team revives, 10 small revives, and 2 level 60 revives. All of them, but like 1 level 60 revive was gone after that Captain Marvel fight.
And that's only 6 fights in, and there's 20 on the path.
That was.
So you must have been sweating bullets then.
Oh, I wasn't sweating bullets.
Obviously, credit that you continued on, but did you feel at that moment like, I'm done?
I felt, you know, I was feeling a little desperate in that time. But I was thinking back to the title. The Abyss stared back, but I didn't blink, and I was like, I can't blink now. I'm too deep. I'm too deep. So I powered through. I didn't just use Symbiote Supreme. I used Domino, and she got off, a few percents here and there. But that fight sucked so bad.
God.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be one. You knew there was going to be one.
I knew there was going to be one because I was looking forward to the Collector because I like the Collector fight. I like the concept of it, except for the last 10%. That's kind of but everything else is cool.
Cool. Right.
And what about a great fight?
So there were. I mean, the Mephisto fight. That's kind of cheap because Human Torch is an easy solo. So I'm not going to say that one, but. Surprisingly, one of my favorite fights was Cyclops. I really, really, really like Cyclops.
God, I hate Cyclops.
And,
can you explain the mechanics of that fight?
Yes. So Cyclops has 5.7 million health in the Abyss, and he has 2 mechanics. So the first mechanic, which is important to take note of, is he does not gain power from normal means. Every 10 seconds he gains a bar of power, and whenever he gains that bar of power, he almost puts like a taunt on himself, but he doesn't really put a taunt on himself. He just has a much higher chance to throw a special attack. So that's his first mechanic. And his second mechanic, which is, you have to master this in order to have a good time against this fight, is he has 2 modes for his special attacks. He has spread shot mode and he has overcharge mode. And spread shot mode is the mode where the parry mastery and the dexterity mastery do not function. Or I'm sorry, the dexterity mastery does not function, and you can't miss the attack. So what you have to do is parry the special one. And if you parry it properly, the perfect block will carry over for the entire special so you don't take any damage. His second mode is overcharge mode, and that is when his special one is unblockable and it can't miss, so you just have to dex the special one normally. Now, how I mastered this fight and really enjoyed it with Human Torch was his modes have different colors. Spread shot is green, overcharge is yellow. Yellow for dexterity. That's how I mastered the fight.
That's clever.
And that's excuse me, voice crack, great, woohoo. After my run with Guillotine, I had a feeling Human Torch was going to be really good for the fight because every time you parry the special one, you get 5 smolders.
Right. You're taking that energy and throwing it back at him.
Exactly. So I got that
Nice.
fight down with Human Torch and probably from 85%, 3 revives.
Nice. Nice.
So
Very nice.
That probably my, besides Mephisto, but I'm not counting him, my most fun fight in Abyss was Cyclops.
That's pretty cool. Keeping on topic with Human Torch, how do you feel the champion balances, and especially the buff that Human Torch is getting, is going to affect further Abyss of Legends runs? And are you waiting until that buff goes in until you push the 100%?
Well, I'm waiting anyway because I don't have the first one complete, but it will be nice to have Torch buffed, and I think his buff, you know, even as slight as it is, it's going to be huge for Abyss, because the temperature does 2 things for Torch's damage outputting: increases the duration of Incinerate and increases the damage of the Incinerate. So being able to medium parry heavy or parry medium heavy and get to 20 temperature is going to be crazy for damage output, because Torch by himself with Incinerates, they deal a decent amount of damage, but once you get maybe above 10 smolders, they start dealing maybe 600, 700 damage per second.
Ooh.
At max temp. That's only 7 smolders, mate. When you get up to like 25, 30, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Why do I really want a Human Torch all of a sudden? Especially this last week, it's been like, oh, I really want a Human Torch, even more so after this buff that's going in.
Yeah.
I get up.
Torch is interesting. Yeah, Torch is interesting because I feel like when he came out, people were kind of like meh, and we've continually found uses for him, and his stock continues to go up.
Yep. That's how I feel people are going to be with Silver Surfer. With his his I mean, I think Surfer is one of those high skill cap champions, and it takes a long time to get comfortable with him. I remember testing him out and just not feeling comfortable with him, like hours into testing, and then seeing some of your footage with Surfer. I was like, oh, he gets it. Like, because I would just like, oh, I'm gonna trigger the power gain buff again. Like, I just could not get rotation down of like getting all the unique buffs active. Just couldn't keep it all in my head. But I've seen you do some really, really impressive stuff with Surfer. Yeah, I took him to rank 5 yesterday, so I might do a revisit video. Maybe some maybe 11 Star-Lord solo. Who knows?
I think people would be interested in seeing that, especially because the first impressions of that character were so negative. It would be interesting to see some counterpoints, because clearly the damage is there with Surfer if you know how to get it.
It's there. People just don't care. Rhymes.
That is. Yep.
So I was going to say, like, what mastery setup do you run on Surfer by any chance? And as well with Abyss, what mastery were you running as well?
To be completely honest, I haven't changed my masteries in 2 years.
Sorry, should be more specific. Was it like Suicide Mastery or just a generic normal build that's maybe? It's
mostly a normal build. I run points in Assassin and Despair, and it's a normal build. I don't even have Suicides unlocked, so I couldn't run them if I wanted to. I don't want to, but it's pretty much a bog standard build, except I have 3 points in Standard Ground.
Do you think that a Suicide Mastery would be something you would see people running? I haven't checked out Legacy's run, whether or not he ran it. Would that give any fighting edge, or would it be a case that, based on what we've seen, it would be a futile attempt?
I think Suicides for the Abyss, they're good in certain matchups, but for a majority of the fights, you're throwing a lot of special attacks. So Suicides are not the most friendly for a majority of the fights. I'd probably say 70% you don't really want to run Suicides. Yeah. But there are some fights like Luke Cage would be a fight that I would consider running Suicides for, just for maximum damage output. The Collector, I've seen some people running Suicides with the Collector, but it's weird because if I had a 999 Aegon I wouldn't be running Suicides because I would want to throw as many specials as I possibly could, doing the heavy counter and, you know, getting him down that way. Because Suicides, like, let's say you just got hit, you know, you got 6 Furies, you throw your special 2, you're at 5%, you're dead.
Yeah.
So.
Now, MSD, we often find that Kabam releases a piece of content and then releases the counters later.
Yes.
You know, clearly Abyss, you know, you can get through it now. There's some great options. But if you had to design a character or do some theory crafting about a character that's not in the game yet that would have a certain tool set that would you know, revolutionize how we could get through the Abyss, what would that champion look like?
So, not naming any specific champion, because I'd probably want to do research on characters that aren't in the game. But I would
who it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I would give a character the ability of one of two things. One, to either make his opponent believe he doesn't have a combo meter, or two, he has a negative combo.
Ooh.
So every hit doesn't add to your combo meter, it subtracts. So it goes backwards, but obviously it's like a normal combo, but it doesn't react to the Abyss's combo meter because you're negatively hitting.
Oh, wow. So there'd be certain situations where a champion like that would be like unusable in normal content, but
right.
Like you could never prove yourself with that champion, for instance.
Exactly. But to take him into the Abyss would never trigger any enrage.
Wow. I would never have thought of that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I just thought of it on the spot, to be honest.
Okay, you're smarter than us. It's cool. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. Rich, do you have any more Abyss questions before we kind of get to a kind of general wrap up and how we feel about, you know, what Kabam did with this content?
Actually, you asked the kind of the perfect question about what kind of like build of the future to put in. But would you obviously we'd say that higher ranked 6 stars would be easier to just what we'd refer to as cheesing through that. How would you feel if we had 7 stars in the game and dealing with Abyss? Would that be something that you could see Kabam putting in about a year or two? And would you kind of feel that would, number one, make it more easier, or number two, kind of go like, would they have some kind of mechanic build similar to 6 stars where they're able to replenish health? That again would make the situation easier as well.
So what I think would be interesting with 7 stars, now I'm not advocating that they put in 7 stars ASAP, but what would be kind of an interesting thing with 7 stars, because Bam Mike said, oh yeah, we don't want this to be done for months or years. If they're trying to say, I don't want Abyss done for years, they could put in 7 stars and have them mechanic where they have some kind of, like I said, like a negative combo feature, or some kind of ability where their combo meter is heavily inflated, but their actual combo is much lower.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that with 7 stars. But I feel, you know, as we get closer to having maxed out 6-star champions, you'll start to hear more and more talk about 7-star champions. And I don't think we're at that point yet, and I don't think we'll be at that point for a while, because only the top of the top of the top of the top of the game are getting, you know, are being able to pop 10 6-stars open.
Yeah.
No one, you know, 99% of the community is not able to just pop 10 or 15 6-stars every month. That doesn't happen. So once we're able to do that, once a vast majority of the player base is able to acquire 6-stars at a more rapid rate, then yeah, I think we'll start to hear, you know, official talk of adding 7 stars to the game. But at this point, I don't see it happening for at least 4 years.
Yeah. My God, that would go into nearly 10 years. Would the game still be running in 10 years? I mean, it'd be quite a feat for a mobile game.
That would be, I mean, they said they have plans till 2025, so.
Nice.
I mean, they keep getting stronger, and you look at the numbers, and it was astounding to see the numbers on Seaton's stream where he was holding really strong around 10 or 11K. And then as he got towards the end, I think he got up to 17,000 and he was trending on YouTube gaming. He was in the top 5 or 6 of gaming live streams worldwide at that point, which is just an astounding accomplishment for this game we love. I mean, you know, it's great for him, don't get me wrong, and you know, it's phenomenal what he's done, but for me, the more encouraging thing is it shows me how big the fan base is for the game and that it continues to be healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right, I think that's unless you've got any more final questions, Dan.
Yeah, I think let's just to wrap it up, you know, MSD, give me your grade, give Kabam a grade for the execution and creation of the Abyss of Legends.
What's the scale? Are we talking letters or a 1 to 10?
Let's give him a 1 to 10, 10 being the highest.
Okay, so with my experience in Abyss and my atypical team usage, I would probably have to give Kabam on Abyss. I have to give it like a 6.5 or a 7. I feel like it was pretty fun, pretty challenging, pretty fun. I don't advocate for fights like Red Skull. He can go die in a pit. But most of the fights, oh, and Luke Cage too, he can join him, are very fun looking. They have a level of challenge and skill. It's not just face roll. Now obviously fights like Luke Cage and Red Skull, you want to die, but that happened in Labyrinth too. Like, people just hated Venom Pool. People hated Spider-Man. So you're obviously gonna have 1 or 2 fights like that, but I think a majority of the fights in Abyss are manageable, to say the least, manageable. So I'd give them like a 6.5 out of 10. I'd say they did a pretty good job with kind of the whole thing on Abyss, and I'm looking forward to the future content, like hopefully Cavalier Monthly Event Quest difficulty, and future content event quests that are to come.
Excellent.
Yeah, we got Act 6.4 coming soon, and we'll see what the completion rewards for Act 6 are going to be. I know that's going to be a hot button issue.
That's going to be big, because the thing with Act 6 is, it's either, I hope it really does this one thing, but it could do another thing, which would suck. But I really hope the Act 6 100% rewards is a Tier 5 class catalyst selector. So that incentivizes you to use that on a champion to then do Abyss. That's what I really, really hope. Is it going to happen? Who knows? But who is this? Kabam.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is a 6-star Nexus Crystal, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh man,
that would be sweet. Yeah. Do you think Act 6 100% will give you the materials to R4 a 6-star?
Good question. So far in Act 6, we have not seen any sign of Tier 3 Alpha, Tier 6 Basic, or any 6-star Signature Stones or Awakening Gems. We just saw the introduction of the first obtainable Awakening Gems in the Abyss, and Signature Stones, and Tier 5 Class Catalyst, so that's great, but we haven't seen any Tier 6 Basic or Tier 3 Alpha. So, to answer your question, I don't think we're going to see the materials to take a 6-star to rank 4 in Act 6 100%. I could be wrong, but I just think if they're not going to put the materials in Abyss, they're not going to put it in 6.4 or Act 6 in general.
Because the jump's just too big from what we don't have to what those 2 items are.
Because soon people are going to be, if you don't get unlucky like me and get a Mystic, are going to be rank 3 and 6 stars. And that jump, it's not as substantial as rank 4 to rank 5 was for 5-star champions, but it's still like a 20% jump. So that's a nice jump. So that's gonna it's gonna be good.
R3 6 stars. I mean, we were stuck at R2 for how long? Like more than a year. So
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine that we're going to see, R4 6 stars, a couple months after seeing the first, R3 6 stars.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
I think we're there. I think that's a wrap, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Metal Sonic Dude, to share
Absolutely.
your experiences. It was great talking to you. Always enjoy picking your brain on the high-end content in Marvel Contest of Champions.
Glad you had me on, man. I'm glad you guys had me on. This was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks. You're our first ever guest. There we go. Cemented in history.
Number 2, first guest.
We'll have you back. We will have you back.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we're probably going to do a live edition at New York Comic Con, which is going to be quite exciting. So
that will be fun.
We'll get
some chocolate milks for everybody.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, are you making plans to attend in 2020?
I'm going back.
Awesome. Just got to defend the title, right?
Most likely, yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I'll retire by then. Who knows?
No, I've got to be standing behind your dad, who's cheering on, going, "John!
Sure, let's go."
You could retire, and then you could make like an epic comeback. Like it'd be like wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, whose music is that? Oh, it's MSD coming out of the crowd. He's back.
It's like
Josh is going nuts.
Oh my God, dude! When I won, Josh, literally, I don't know if he knew what he was doing. He was like running across the stage. I thought he was gonna flip off. I didn't know if he was okay.
God.
He was like running around. He was kneeling down, doing somersaults. What was happening?
That dude is the definition of hype.
Yeah.
He's great.
Oh, he is the hype man, and I hope he's the announcer for next year.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right, Rich, you want to take us home?
I will do indeed. Right, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming on by to the second episode. That was the Contest Round podcast. We are on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. Links are in the description. Also, the links for Frontline MCOC, that's Dan's information, his blog, and as well, we've got the Twitter. But also, and obviously more importantly, is that we've got Metal Sonic Dude's information for his YouTube channel and as well Twitter.
Not more importantly, Dan, we are at a caliber of equality in this live chat. Okay?
I'm sorry, Dan. I've just killed our relationship with the podcast. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's all right. MSD has my back. It's all good.
It's a wrong choice of words. I said it's a wrong choice of words.
Listen, he is the champion. I am just your humble news correspondent.
Same as me.
Hey guys, we wouldn't have the news without the newscasters. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. At least
you make. Yeah, you make the news. We'll report it.
yeah, that's it.
All right.
Yep. All information for stuff is in the descriptions and bios of wherever you see the podcast. Next episode will hopefully be next week, and we might be talking champion balances. We don't know what's happening with our guest for that one, but we'll let you know what's happening. Thank you everybody for joining by MSD and Dan. Thank you and good night.